Hey, it's Sam, and I'm here in Joshua Tree, California, which is where it's in the high desert. There was just a festival here called Bhakti Fest, which is where a lot of the great kirtan artists of the world come for 4 days or something. And I was here talking about my certification course and selling my books. I sold all my books, my yoga and Vedic astrology books. Anyway, so I'm doing a quick update here. Might be a little wind. The wind's starting to blow a little bit, which we like in the desert. Here at about 9 a.m. it's not 110 degrees. So we have an eclipse this week, lunar eclipse, and the day of the eclipse, the moon will be in Aquarius for most of the day, mainly in the nakshatra of Purva Bhadrapada. And then when we actually have the eclipse, when we actually have the lunar eclipse, it'll move into very early degrees of Pisces. It's right as this transition is happening between Aquarius and Pisces. I'll stand back here. And very transitional day for sure, where the sun is changing signs that day, of course. So the sun is moving from Leo into Aquarius, and then of course the moon will then be moving opposite, because when we have a lunar eclipse, the moon is opposite the sun. And so as the sun goes from Leo to Aquarius, the moon goes from Leo to Virgo. Excuse me, I may have misspoke. Sun goes from Leo to Virgo, moon goes from Aquarius to Pisces that day. And so a lot of energy in transition, and we've been really dealing a lot with this Leo energy, Leo Aquarius energy, since January of this year, when Rahu and Ketu entered that nodal axis of Leo Aquarius. And as I've been saying the whole time, and in fact as I started saying last year when Jupiter went into Leo, we were going to be dealing a lot with governments and how those governments inspire us and what kind of leadership we want, and how we are looking for different leadership to inspire us. This is all Leo themes and also Jupiter themes. Jupiter's now moved into Virgo, which happened in the middle of August. But by that time, Rahu has been occupying Leo. So these big themes right now we see still being played out on the world stage. US election, we see a lot of it. We also see now big things. Looks like US and Russia are getting closer to compromises on issues that, for instance, have to do with Syria. Rather surprising development. I said it when I talked about the solar eclipse in Leo a couple weeks ago, that we can expect some very surprising turns of events on the world stage. Another big shocking world event has been the rapid escalation of the nuclear program in North Korea, and those issues unexpected, and that's really affecting the whole global situation of how governments relate with each other, and how the population and the populace relates with their government as well. So I'm not going to be getting into US election, Trump, Clinton stuff, but we definitely still obviously see a lot of polarizing around those themes, who you think is better or whatever. And now that Jupiter has gone into Virgo, and the sun will be going into Virgo as well, again, we're going to be using more precision and demanding more focused and more details relative to those leaders and the leadership that we're looking for, rather than just being all jacked up and amped up on inspiration and like, well, he's the savior. Like, as I used as an example, during the Jupiter Rahu in Leo, which was from January of this year, or I'm sorry, yeah, early January this year, or actually was it late December last year, until about a month ago, it was the sort of Trump and Sanders They were the big inspiring figures. Now we're into more practical details and really scrutinizing to see what kind of leadership and what's in the details. What are they going to do as far as details are concerned? So on a personal level, of course, we're also dealing with these issues, these power structures within ourself. And again, you know, Leo themes have to do with where your true power lies. And it's not just in the attention you can draw to yourself and the power that comes from having everybody look at you and say you're great. That's just the surface level. Maybe you don't even have the confidence to do that. This is often where people get stuck with Leo energy. Some people, like for instance, one of the biggest fears most people have is the fear of public speaking, drawing attention to yourself, being the one that everyone's looking at, even if it's just 5 people. Some people don't even get to that point to where their confidence level allows themselves to be holding that space. But then maybe perhaps then they start to get the confidence to do that and they start to get the attention. What do they do with the attention then? Do they just want to keep getting more attention for vanity, or do they use that attention as like an antenna or like a lightning rod, draws in the power and then distributes it? So we can be a magnetic force of attention, but we can use that attention to exploit others, to dominate others, to get all inflated and puffed up with pride and ego. Or we can, and when that happens, it's always wavering. It's wavering. We have the confidence to do this, but not to do that, because we're going to look good and shine in this moment, but we might look foolish and stupid in that one. But when your point is not, when your focal point doesn't revolve around you and your glory, your personal glory, but instead revolves around something higher, then the calculus is not whether or not you're in your comfort zone. The calculus is this the best I can do? Is this the greatest use of my power or the attention I might have or the platform? Is it going to serve the best? Is it going to serve the most people? Because I need to get that high purpose and that high message out. When that happens, then the power you have is not just the power to draw attention towards you. It's the power to be a conduit for that energy and that attention that then gets distributed for the good of all. And again, you should be able to see, hopefully, the connection to things like government and all the stuff I'm saying. And you know, just as an aside, sometimes people, they get, you know, they'll listen to the first part of a message and they'll be like, oh, you're talking about politics again, and kind of leave. I don't talk about it because, I talk about it because it's a metaphor, because it's things we can refer to in our world all around us that we can see. We can see these issues. And then I try to bring it into a personal sphere. Hopefully it's effective, I don't know. I just do my best. But we are all either a magnet for attraction and for attention, or we're kind of deflecting it and playing small. It doesn't mean you have to have some big platform. It just means that you have to step up relative to what you really want to contribute. And these are the big themes from this Leo eclipse cycle. With the full moon is where we really can we have to really pay attention to the message that comes back to us from those in our sphere and those that we impact. It doesn't have to be, you know, like I make videos and people comment. It doesn't have to be anything like that in your life, even if you're not doing those things. Just pay attention to the people in your sphere, particularly the ones that you have power over. It could be your family, your employees, the gas station attendant, or actually most gas is self-serve now. So the cashier, because in that situation you're kind of like the king, right? Those situations where you're the powerful one, how do you handle that power? Or if you are, like, let's say, a teacher, or what, you know, how do you treat those who you have nothing to get, you have nothing to gain from? Because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. I think that's the phrase, which means that the way you handle the way you handle the cashier is the way you handle your boss, or the way you handle your underlings. It's the way you handle everything and everyone. And it's a very good reflection of how you handle power, whether you abuse power in situations where you have it, or feel like others are abusing you. And this cranky relationship with power is a big stumbling block right now in your greater contribution. So on the full moon, we're trying to really reconcile the contrast between, let's say, to use the government metaphor, the government and the citizens. Like, for instance, the candidates running for president, really looking at what the citizens are saying to them, for example. So to advance your platform, or to advance your goals in life, which is a big thing right now with all the Leo energy. And I say the Leo because we had the solar eclipse in Leo. That's the fulcrum of the lever. We're really revolving around the sun part of the eclipse. The moon is the harmonizing, contrasting point. So with his Leo cycle and Rahu eclipsing, again, when Rahu eclipses the sun, it just brings that into great focus. So to really pay attention to the message that's coming back from your community. I just had a great experience with it, as I said, here at the festival. I did a talk. There was started with about 45 or 50 people. As it was a challenging talk in the sense that I'm reading right from the texts and right from Prashahorasastra, and I'm talking about astronomy, and a little challenging at these festivals because they're all kind of like, for example, the class before me was a cacao ceremony where they did this meditation and they ate chocolate. Pretty cool, right? I told the dude afterward, who was cleaning up, I was like, boy, I bet my students wish they would have attended yours. I have to apologize to them. And so it was a fun little joke to kind of start off with, well, you missed the chocolate ceremony, sorry, I don't have chocolate for you. But instead, we talked, it was, some people, they're just kind of like, oh, it's astrology, I'll just sit back and it'll be, I'll talk about the stars, and here I'm like reading from Prashahorasastra, and they're having to think. So anyway, some people left, but then what I always notice is as 10 people leave, 15 or 20 people become 10 times more focused because they're like, wow, okay, this guy's really talking about the real stuff, okay? Because when you start talking about the real truth, when the truth is really being spoken, it gets the attention of the people who really want to hear the truth, and those are the people I want to talk to anyway. I'll talk to the other ones in another format, but when I'm teaching a workshop, it's the opportunity for an hour and a half to, once again, be the one that everybody's paying attention to. So it's like I have their attention, so I want to use it in the highest way rather than, me, I'm great. I'm talking about how all this is great. And I've been one who's, I've had as much fear of public speaking as anyone, growing up with a terrible stuttering habit and all this stuff. So, but aligned with that higher purpose, I could never let that stop me. Otherwise I'd feel like a complete failure if I let my stuttering problem stop me from doing this or whatever. But the feedback that came back from the group was so positive. I had, like, right then and there, I sold like 8 books, which it's a lot for people to get up and then buy a book and then walk around, get out their money. And I had like 4 people register for my certification course, which is great. So it was a good validation for me to get the feedback from the community that I'm serving, and I'm serving in alignment with my message. I use my example not to just talk about myself because I think I'm so great, but as an example of the way to really gauge whether or not your message is congruent. Like, for instance, if I would have got up and tried to make it light because, well, and there's the temptation to do it. Well, I'm at Bhakti Fest, people don't want this heavy thing. I hand them a piece of paper with the sutras from Prashahorasastra. It's like, that's a little inappropriate for Bhakti Fest where people are just kind of wanting to, it's like, but if I would have done that, I would have been watering down my message. It wouldn't have been as congruent with who I really am, who I really want to reach. It would have been a little bit lighter, and I've done that before, but in those situations is what I was actually doing readings. So I was sort of trying to get people to want to get a reading. Here it was more serious. So again, it's just about noticing the message that comes back and how in alignment you are with it and others are with what you have to say. That's the big point here for the next few weeks. And you're probably noticing it now because the moon is getting closer to that eclipse on the 16th. We're a few days away, you know, depending on when you're seeing this. So it's in the nakshatra of Purva Bhadrapada. Purva Bhadrapada means the earlier, it means early auspicious foot or result. Pada is foot, but it also means result because the pada is what's on the ground, it's what's landed. So it means like what's landed, what the result is of literally like the culmination of your karma. Like karma is really culminating at this section of the zodiac. It's where Aquarius becomes Pisces. And it's actually part of what's called the scorching pair, which is like a deathbed. It's like the death of things, and karma's culminating and finishing at this point of the zodiac, from Aquarius to Pisces. And then the next nakshatra is called Uttara Bhadrapada, which is the later auspicious result, which are the which are the back legs of the death cot. And then the last one is Revati, which is where the gentle deity Pushan leads the soul home after the death. So it's this section of the zodiac where we're actually transitioning from being a social citizen of the world to being a citizen of the cosmos, a cosmic being. And the nakshatra is called Aj Ekpada, which means one-footed goat. Strange concept, but it's symbolic of lightning that strikes. You know, lightning strikes at one point, comes down and hits the earth, like one-footed goat. And again, we have Aj Ekapad, the ruler of Purva Bhadrapad. You see this pada thing. And so this one-footed goat is like lightning that comes down and strikes and gives us this awareness, like, oh, okay. So look for sudden and shocking sort of breakthroughs and awareness where you'll suddenly, you know, things can shockingly and suddenly change and shift and snap into place. We might see it in the world. We might see it in culture where some shocking event, maybe an inauspicious one, a dangerous one, shifts everything all of a sudden very dramatically. Again, because we're dealing with so many big themes right now, especially in the political landscape, we might see some shocking political thing with maybe one of the U.S. candidates, or something else politically that shifts drastically all of a sudden. It's drastic enough when you have eclipses, but in this nakshatra, and especially as the energy is changing, because the sun is also changing signs that day. The sun is very early Virgo and the moon is very early Pisces. So when planets change signs, what's called Sandhi, they're at these transitional points anyway, it's often very unpredictable what's going to happen. So even like the 15th, the 16th might be some very unpredictable events that really change the equation. And in your life, notice that as well. Be on the lookout for unpredictable things. Again, it's not always bad. Often because the world is full of drama, we tend to notice the bad things that will happen. So we might notice something dramatic, unexpected, kind of shocking, that's more of a malevolent, type. But that's neither here nor there. So a lot to think about in this eclipse season. Looked at me long enough. Could look at this beautiful